We're going to stick with the theme of people and outcomes, right? So the topic today is how the IT leader in the past is really elevated to now the tech leader, the CIO, right? The game is changing, right? They have a lot more responsibility. And anybody that's been in the industry, and we've got 80 years of experience combined up here on both sides of the fence. This is real important to know. Anybody that's been in the industry has seen how important that IT role. It's been evolving for the last 10 to 15 years. The smart people, those used to be the nerds, are the ones we all relied on, are now really taking over the positions and leading charge, right? So they've got some challenges coming up, and the pandemic, as everyone saw, has accelerated the pace of this, tremendously. We're 3 or 4 or 5 years ahead of where we would have been, shouldn't there have been a pandemic. So exciting topic. We're going to tap into the minds of these buyers today with our panel, and we're going to understand how do we best approach them? How do we drive value? Good reps understand requirements. Great reps understand how they make their customers successful personally, right? That's how you win deals. So with that, I'm going to have the panel introduce themselves.
Hey, good morning, everybody. As a fellow nerd, I am super glad that we're in this time and age where we finally put an end to nerd persecution, and the geeks are getting our time in the sun here. So appreciate your guys' time this morning. I know we're all feeling a little rough, including myself from last night. But I think you're going to find some value in the panel today, a lot of experience, a lot of good customer engagement experience with some of you as well, and just things that I think you're going to find some value in and take back into your own pursuits. I'm Brian Eichmann. I'm VP of Business Development and Solutions Architecture at CoreSite. I've been with the company for 10 years, and prior to this role, I had 20 years of IT operations and strategy experience as a buyer and as an integrator. So those would be kind of the value statements that I'll bring to the table today.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Tom. Great to be here as well. It's fun to have events in person again. I am waiting for American Express to call me and say, hey, Mr. Carlin, how long are you going to hang out here? Because we might have to cut you off. So they haven't done that yet, but great venue for sure. I'm with Flexential, Chief Innovation Officer. I don't want to say 30 years of IT experience, but I guess I will, which is sort of scary that we're the old people now. But yeah, happy to provide my experience both on kind of running IT in a bunch of different places like the Mayo Clinic and VMware and so forth, but also provide some of the experience that we see kind of in the market as well.
Yep, good morning, everybody. I'm Mike Berlin. I run the West region for Five9, and this is an inaugural meeting for us. We're just kicking off a direct relationship with the Bridgepoint team. Thank you, Gary, Brian. We appreciate the partnership and the opportunity to work with you guys and how we can integrate into your success, right? It's really the ability to partner, differentiate, and drive change and success within the organizations that we target. And the good news is we've already got a pipeline. So the pipeline is what we're all after, and how we can drive those successes together. So look forward to sharing some knowledge and learning a lot from you and how you work with us and how we can create that success together. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. I'm Chad Frazier. I'm with Netrio. We're a managed service provider for IT services as well as a managed security service provider. So we specialize just in the services. We're kind of agnostic in terms of the technology partners, which is kind of one of the themes you'll hear today. So, we help kind of solve problems, come in as the trusted advisor. I've got a number of years experience in the industry on various sides, anything from a carrier to value-added reseller, system integrator, distributor, and finally as a service specialist. So I think I have bring a good context to kind of all sides of that discussion, kind of from a buying perspective, distribution, and kind of as a service provider.
Awesome. Thanks, Chad. You guys can take a seat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was wondering what the over-under is out in the audience, if we're going to sit down or not.
Just stand up that whole time. So again, it's about people, right? So post-pandemic, you've seen a lot of the statistics and the marketing research that we've got done as a company, right? We spent a ton of money. The private equity firms are spending money. They want to get inside the mind of the buyer today. And one of the common themes is it's an opportunity of a lifetime for the CIO moving forward. So I'm looking to just get some perspective, and I think we're fortunate. Both Brian and Jason have sat on that side of the fence. right? They've been there, they've purchased, they've dealt with it, and they've seen it evolve. And now they're sitting on the other side trying to build products and solutions that they can put in front of them. So, I'll start right here. Give us your perspective on where this is going. Do you see the change? What are the big changes? And what are the successful CIOs doing today that they didn't do 2 years ago?
Yeah, this one's near and dear to my heart. Just as I mentioned in my opening remarks, this is my career journey, right? I started out in ops, being an engineer, and shifted into more strategy. But this started happening 10, 12 years ago where IT leaders couldn't just function as a utility, right? We didn't just keep the lights on. This transformation really has been going on for the better part of a decade. The pandemic just accelerated it and put a lot more focus on accelerating that specific evolution. But, as IT leaders are now looked at in the business as an enabler of the overall corporate strategy and not just a cost center. And so a lot of innovation is cooked up inside of IT, but the IT leaders, for the most part, would always operate in a black box, right? Kind of in the cave, right? Their ideas didn't get bubbled up into the leadership tables. That's changed. They now have a seat at the table, and they are a key stakeholder that, hey, CEO, C-level, I'm going to be an enabler for you to effectively and efficiently execute your strategy today, but in the future as well. And that's maybe one of the bigger transformations I've been a part of.
And Jason, what do you see as an innovator in trying to build product sets that you're changing to get in front of, to bring that value to this new leader, right? To maybe help them on the business side, right? I think, what are some of the things you guys are doing to support that?
Yeah, I think the quote from Nadia Sadella is a great one. I would actually probably call it even, it's not 2 years of change, but maybe 10 years of change or 10x change, whatever that might be. The thing that sort of resonates with me over the pandemic is how network-enabled services really became the key, right? Everything we did became online. And now there is really no conversation that doesn't include service resiliency, availability, high availability, distributed architectures, whatever it might be, to really change the game to make sure that nothing goes down, right? And you think about how many businesses had to go reorient themselves to be online only. Well, AutoNation is a great one where, buying and selling a car is a horrible experience, and thank God we applied some technology to that, right? And I think that's just a great use case of how the CIO really did have a major pivot during the last couple of years to really be the revenue source, right? And I think that's just a great, great opportunity. So what we're doing is really everything is network enabled. So whether it's, our entire foundation of our 40 facilities are all interconnected. We're about to introduce our new mesh product that allows us to sort of bring all those together point to point, and our cloud fabric capabilities. So everything is really about the network and how we deliver the network services in a secure fashion.
Oh, great. I'm going to move to another. I'm going to appear one of the first topics. So the world's changed, and you just mentioned there's a seat at the boardroom, right? No longer, is the CIO sitting there just giving his budget and trying to reduce it by 10% every year. Mike, you get to sit on, I think what's one of the most complex solution sales left in the business. You get to touch all facets in contact center of the business, right? So how are you changing what you guys are doing? How are you getting to talk to each of these buyers, right, and give them that strategy in contact center to support that?
Yeah, that's great. It's only gotten more difficult, right? Especially if you think about the role of the CIO as they've changed over the last couple of years, and as it relates to us and what we do in CCaaS, right? As an example, 2 deals this year, $90 million combined in ACV. One of those deals was 40, the other was 50. One of them was 30,000 agents, the other 16,000 agents. In the second one, as an example, there were 6 CIOs in the decision-making process because of the complexity of the business.
And how sticky is that, right? Like at the end of the day, how sticky are these kind of deals? I think people need to hear it. They're not pulling that out. They're not taking the $45 million Tarpley deal and ripping it out in 3 years. So from longevity, talk how sticky that kind of deal is.
Well, you think about the stickiness now of what's going on in the migration to cloud and the fact that you still have 60% of contact centers that are on premise, right? And they've been on premise for 20 plus years. And while they may say it's cloud-based, it's really private data center, right? That's what it is. But when you think about the complexity of change, so think about a migration. Everybody preaches customer experience, customer journey, agent experience as an example. And now we have all these new emerging technologies like AI. What does AI mean? Right? What is AI ML? Everybody throws it out there in a demo. We do AI and ML. What does that mean? How do you talk about work process automation and workflow automation, right? How does that affect the back end? So the CIO now has to act as the central point of communications to bring together these multiple aspects of a business, from the CMO for digital transformation and engagement, to the COO, to the back end operational piece, right, to the CEO and the business performance piece, et cetera. So their job has gotten extremely complex, and they need us, they need you as advisors to be those subject matter experts, because there's just no way they can consume it all anymore. They just can't. It's just too much information for them. But yet, they're the ones held responsible for that, right? I don't know if you heard, by the way, Twilio laid off 11% too today.
No, didn't hear that. It's funny because it takes us right to another slide. You know, and we've seen a bunch of these slides over and over, but we're looking at them in a different context today. So it could be argued that much of IT success comes down to overcoming business language barriers, right? And it's pretty funny. We got a quote in our office that says, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't know it well enough." It's by Albert Einstein, and I don't know whoever did this quote. It's pretty horrible, right? So I had to read it over like 5 times to really understand what they're talking about. But when you think about it, right, and and I'll bring this over to you, Chad. When you think about that quote and you think about business challenges, what are the challenges? I mean, IT was not involved in that business, right? So what are some of the challenges that you see, and where do these buyers have to get better at today, where they're not, right, in the enterprise space? What do they need to focus on from a skill set perspective to be more successful?
Well, I think fundamentally the job's changed, right? Because as all my esteemed colleagues have pointed out, over time when I first became involved in IT, IT owned the budget, line of business kind of did their own thing, and now that's shifted, and IT's become a cost center largely, right? So it's all about reduction of staff and all that. And then along with that, I think the landscape's changed. We talked about move to the cloud, cybersecurity, and the attack surface is much larger. So if you really think about the job that the IT team and the CIO have today, it's protect the castle, right? There's a lot of different ways that data is the new oil, as they say, and that's value. And then you have to serve your customers, which are generally going to be the end users at each customer. So I think that, along with the fact that you have to be able to go out and get a handle on the technology and use technology as an assistant to help get the conversation down to a basic conversation. What challenges do you have? What are you trying to overcome? You don't, the days of coming in and with a lot of acronyms from both sides where you're not really speaking the same language, it never is outcome-based, right? If you get down to the fact where you understand what the challenges are and what they're trying to overcome, then you can craft solutions that can help them address it. So I think that coming together in a common language is key for you to have a successful outcome.
So they're translators, right? At the end of the day, they need to translate,
Absolutely.
Right? The business goals, requirements back right. With the business. I'm going to pull up another one. So right into the talents and the skill sets that the CIOs need. I mean, it's almost like a unicorn, right? When you look up here and you look at the skill sets that they need today. And it's funny because we talk about the business challenges, but based on the survey, it's probably one of the few that's not up there, right? That translation piece, which I think is the most important component of that. I mean, what else do you see up there, Brian, that maybe just missing, right, when you're looking here?
Yeah, and I do want to just real quick piggyback on some of the language barriers, and that is going to be the IT leader who's making this transformation, maybe their most difficult leap. They talk about, you kind of mentioned it there, like attack surface, right? The CFO, the boardroom has no idea what attack surface is, right? That's IT vernacular. But that to the boardroom is risk. That is loss of revenue. That's what you guys got to be great at is, all right, the IT guys, really focused on these types of nomenclatures. He's really saying the same thing to the boardroom, but there just needs to be somebody in the middle that can translate that language both ways, right? One thing that I don't see on here, this was maybe one of my hardest challenges, is business cases, right? Now the IT leader, when they are submitting budgets and seeking monies to invest in new technologies, to enable the business, to acquire new logos, to drive revenue growth, those types of things. Those are the domains and the pillars that have to be in their business cases, right? IT leaders can't go create a business case and say, I need a new storage array because it's going to give me X amount of more petabytes of storage, because it doesn't make sense to anybody, right? You need to be able to say, well, I need this new storage array because we're going to be able to reduce our cost of sale by X. We are going to be more agile in onboarding new customers, and this new storage array is going to enable us to do X on a product front to improve our competitive positioning, right? And so helping them create those business cases that will resonate with their leadership is certainly a task that they need to get better at, and you can help them do that.
And they're available everywhere, and all the vendors and the suppliers keep giving those out to us, and we keep creating them as a business. So Jason, I guess the next question, you're looking at the 4 bullets up there, what's the most important one? Coming from being a CIO, right, sitting on that side of the fence, if you're, what's the most important?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, I run our customer advisory council as well, and it's amazing to me that 3 or 4 years into this, that we're still talking about, where do workloads live, and where is the most efficient place for them to be, and all of that. I think maybe it's embedded in here, somewhere, which is enterprise architecture, and I hate to use the word governance, but minimal viable process is what somebody mentioned the other day. I mean, it's still so critical in terms of running successful IT in the portfolio, because I think there's a little bit of a misnomer, and we always joke that the CIO got on a plane, read an article, and now shifted everything to Azure, right? Well, that doesn't really happen, and it's generally not very successful when that does happen. And so working with them on, what is your governance strategy to make sure your data's, good, secure, it has integrity, you trust your system. I mean, none of those problems go away based on what cloud you're on. Change management doesn't go away, security issues don't go away. So I think it's really building an openness in the business to, not only justify the right things, to Brian's point, but also, governance isn't a dirty word. It's really important to maintain the integrity of systems and the way things work.
And as the business has spread to the perimeter, right, where everybody's working remote, I mean, we've talked about this entire session, right, that's becoming more and more critical on that. And I would say, Mike, from a contact center perspective and all the various buyers that you deal with, what are some of the tools that you're bringing out to the strategists? Because we talked a little bit about this, before we got on stage, and that will help these strategists understand the different buyers and some of the questions and the probing, the things they need to be looking for, and the business cases and the things that you guys are doing to sort of help the strategists be successful with these deals.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time, going back to your other question too, one of the things on here I think that's so important, right, is collaboration and learning, right? How does the CIO keep up, right? They have to have a team to be able to do that. And what we've done as an example is we provide through our partners a lot of persona mapping based on different situational capabilities and sizes of the market, right? Because what a 50-agent CIO worries about is different from a 1,000 agent, from a 5,000 agent, et cetera. So what we've done to help you is complete a workflow or a playbook, essentially, that includes persona mapping and what's important to each one of the decision makers and what they may be thinking about, right? Why is the CTO, and what is the CTO thinking differently than the CIO, and then how do they collaborate together? Because the discussion is the CTO is going, well, I'd rather build it, right? I'm gonna go to Twilio, I'm gonna go to Amazon, we're gonna do this on our own, and then we're gonna be able to drive an outcome. And the CIO is going like, I don't have any people. How do I do that? How do I build that budget? So those mapping tools allow you to be more effective when you go into some of those initial conversations, understanding where they're at and what they're doing. And also use cases, business cases, ROIs, right? The biggest thing we provide, I think, at the end of the day is an ROI around the cost justification of the investment versus the outcome. And then define the outcomes, right? So what is the statement of work and outcomes that are there? And we do that cradle to grave, which is what differentiates us from a lot of the people we deal with today, and really equips you to have that conversation more effectively, efficiently with the decision-making matrix at that level.
No, that's great. And you mentioned time, and I think that's been another theme, right? Everyone is lean and mean, right? They have so much on their plate, right? They're trying to become business leaders from IT leaders. What, and I'll throw this out to you, Chad. So what would you think that these, I would say that these vendors and the suppliers and the strategists need to work on to free up their time? Like, what's the most valuable thing that you think these IT leaders need to see from our strategists to free that time? How can we help them, outside of the business cases?
I think, and it kind of depends on the level you're interacting at, right? If you're at the CIO level, a lot of their job is to take the strategic vision and align it with the tactical approach, right? So,
and as an MSSP, right?
Right.
There's a huge value there.
yeah. So, if you think about the pillars of a well-architected framework being security, cost, operational efficiency, reliability, and performance, generally a problem is going to fall in one of those categories. So it starts off as a discussion of I've got this issue, and then as you kind of peel back the onion, there is some governance risk compliance framework that they've got to align to, be it HIPAA or CMMC, depending on what industry they're in, and you have to be able to talk to them to see how they align that, where they stand today, and have a roadmap to get them to that. So I think that's, again, back to a common discussion using plain language, and that's how you tie it all together and become viewed as a trusted advisor and kind of move the discussion forward.
Well, and it's interesting because the strategists yesterday, the common theme across the strategists we had on the table yesterday was client value, right? Client first. Everything's about the client. Like, how do we bring value to that customer? Right? How do we make them successful in their business and at their job? And how do we, the strategists that we've seen most successful want to understand what success means to that person. And not just from the business outcomes. How do they get promoted, right? What are they being judged by? So I think we're seeing a lot in that space. So 65% of the IT leaders, some form of revenue generation, what you guys are talking about. This is the biggest piece, right? Now they're talking about revenue. No longer are they a cost on the line. So give us some examples of where you see they're driving revenue. And listen, I think contact center, we know we can talk about some of those as well. So Mike, I'm definitely gonna let you chat about that. But Brian, talk about that. Give us an example where you see that the IT leaders are driving revenue to the business.
Yeah, a real good example is about a decade ago, we identified in IT that customers were going to want more intelligence on their data center environmentals and their deployments, right? And so this wasn't coming from product. It was just something as IT operators and engineers that we saw value in, and there was a gap in service offerings from data center providers out there. So we looked internally at tooling, kind of rudimentary beginnings of data center intelligence platforms, right? And this is now, today, it's a key product that really data center operators need to bring to the table. Customers want deeper insights on their data center environments because they had that in their own premises. And for them to move into a co-location environment like CoreSite, they wanted that same level of control and monitoring and visibility into their environmentals. And so we were able to born, data center intelligence out a decade ago and have continued to innovate around that. And now that is a standard service offering that we've integrated into our customer service platform. Customers can log in, they can monitor in real time their humidity, power usage, right? All of the environmentals intelligence that goes around that, and that was actually cooked up inside of the IT labs.
That's great. And same question, Jason.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking a little bit on the revenue side, but also what prevents revenue, which in the world of supply chain issues, what we're seeing is a lot of our large scale customers really are trying to drive instrumentation, to Brian's point, but to also ensure that they can really manage that entire supply chain in real time, and how important it is for them to know when a chip is going to get into their facility so they can finish their manufacturing process or whatever the downstream and upstream issues might be around that, and that's all network enabled systems, right? So that's linking even manufacturers that might be competitors in some way, but partners in others, linking their systems together to really have that capability of real-time supply chain management, looking at machine learning algorithms to make sure that they can detect, defects and things like that might impact the revenue of the business, which is pretty critical right now.
So it's visibility, it's efficiencies, right? These are things we're trying to, in contact center, Mike, I think, again, it touches every part of the business. It's the brand.
It does, and I think the biggest thing that we are starting to see as a change really is the consolidation of suppliers, right? And I think that's the advantage that we have with the Bridgepoint relationship, right? A lot of these CIOs, especially in contact center, are dealing with multiple vendors across the customer journey or experience into their business, right? Because you're now giving your customers access into your business. So they're dealing with 5 or 6 different suppliers. And if we can consolidate that into a single source, it saves them money and ups the revenue contribution and simplifies the execution of delivery, right? And that's where we partner together to provide that kind of a solution.
Yeah, that's great. And Chad, here's another slide here on where the investments are, cybersecurity, operational efficiencies. These are the same terms over and over and over, right? We're hearing it. I mean, it's a very common theme up there. I mean, are there any ones on there that you feel is cybersecurity the number one? Is it not? I mean, are we?
Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, it is, right? Because as I talked about before, the attack surface is much larger. I think I've seen a statistic where 90% of the breaches are due to phishing attempts, right? So you have to educate the end users in cybersecurity awareness so they know not to do bad things, but likewise, you have to really kind of roll out the endpoint protection. The work from home phenomenon with the pandemic is exacerbated that. So this whole, it's much, and this is my opinion as an MSSP, that protecting the infrastructure, it's a lot easier to put some guards up around it because you have control. Once you move that out into the end user space, then you have unexpected behavior from the end users, you have machines, especially without talking about bringing BYOD into play. It is clearly the biggest threat, in my opinion, today is the cyber. The rest of I think your control is much larger on the rest of the pillars of that well-architected framework.
And Mike, what's something that you've seen a strategist do that's out there selling that works, right? Like we're pretty fortunate, I think, from my perspective. I think Brian Miller, Owen, all the SEs, right? We're on calls all day, every day with customers, with suppliers, with strategists, as you guys are, right? So you see the ones that are successful, you see the big wins, we're sharing them out on the table. What's something, a character trait, or something that they do every time you're on a call that sort of you see success? And anybody can answer that, because I think it's real important that we share those wins and how they win them and what they're doing right in the space, or something that you notice from sitting here and getting on those calls.
Yeah, I still go back to the basic of 101 block and tackling with regards to that, because I think sometimes it's an undersold trait in many of the calls that we do, right? So as suppliers, so many times we're going to get on the call and we're just going to go blah, right? Here's what it is. It's really listening, right? You just can't overstate the ability to listen. And if you listen to what the CIO is going to tell you over the course of a period of time by asking some very deep probing questions, they'll tell you everything. Right? They'll tell you what their problems are, what keeps them up at night, what their concerns are. Is it GDPR? They haven't implemented GDPR yet, as an example, or whatever the case may be. So it's really having the right resources there, not necessarily to answer, but to listen, to take note, and then to be able to respond and follow up with that. Right? It just can't be understated, because again, I sat through a meeting with the countrywide CIO many years ago, and our CEO came in and just went blah. And the guy walked out of the room, and I just looked at him and I said, "I'm out." He goes, "What do you mean you're out?" I said, "Yeah, I quit. I'm leaving." I said, the guy would have told us the entire life story of what we needed to do to win this business, and you kicked him out of the room. So listening, it cannot be understated, and making sure that you have the right resources available to you to plan. And that's where, again, we bring together solutions consultants, solutions architects. You've got a great team here, and it's all about pre-planning and preparation that really extends your ability to differentiate.
2 ears, one mouth. Use them in proportion, right? That was a early sales lesson that I learned. Anybody want to add anything to that? Because I think the goal raise.
I'll add. I mean, I had 10 years as a consultant at Sun doing some pretty cool stuff back in the day. But my favorite thing was you'd be brought into a customer conversation, and I know for a fact every single one of our customers really appreciate the expertise, and whether that's because they can't get to it themselves, or whether they're looking for different perspectives, or they've got their other priorities that are taking their top of mind. They really want that expertise. But my favorite tool in my toolbox was to go in and try to go pivot the CIO or the leader to kind of broaden the conversation, to bring in more of the business leaders and make sure it's not just a technology conversation, and have a workshop that allows you to sort of talk through, it's not just this problem area, but here's the whole opportunity that we can go solve for. And my favorite time was every time when you could get to this point where you would have this kind of oh crap moment in those conversations where the business and the technology guys almost just like for the first time heard each other and understood some of the issues they kind of had working together, right? That was pretty cool.
And I put this last slide up here. 45% of the CIOs say they would engage a consultant in a project. That's the most important slide, right? I think that number continues to grow, and it's what's most important to us because that's what we do, right? We're advisors to our customers. We bring valuable information and to allow them to make the most informed decisions for the business, right? I mean, are you guys seeing that? I mean, are you seeing the channel start to become a much bigger player? I mean, everybody's made investments in it. We were fortunate to have Allison from Lumen up here, who was on the direct side talking about how engaged in the channel they have. So what are you seeing in the channel, and are you seeing the customers leverage consultants, and mostly why?
Yeah, I guess I'll take that one. Without question, there is a huge opportunity for you. All the things that we're talking about, as much as CoreSite is invested in the right tooling to make all of this integration very easy and flywheel for your customers, it's still hard work, right? It's distributed architectures. There's lots of different vendors involved. There's lots of different stakeholders, as we've learned, over the last couple of days. So they're not doing it alone, and they really need subject matter experts across multiple domains for them to do this very effectively and efficiently. And just a massive channel opportunity for folks such as yourself, right, to be those subject matter experts, but to also leverage the subject matter experts that you have at your fingertips, right, through your vendor partners. And CoreSite, we bring a ton of resources to the deal, from knowledgeable sales directors and channel directors through sales engineers to design the space and the power distribution to solutions architects to handle all of the connectivity and the integration to the cloud. There's just a lot of expertise that we bring to the table, and your customers are going to be looking for you to bring that to the deal table with them.
Yeah, 100% agree. Chad, what are your thoughts on that as well?
I couldn't agree. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, if you really think about the plethora of solutions available, it's too much to get your mind around, right? And if you don't take an outcome-based approach and really be laser focused on the outcome instead of what type of technology or tool you're picking, you have no prayer. And I can't count the number of customers who have gone in and done half blank, fill in the blank, implementations of tool sets, didn't get to where they're going because it takes tools, it takes people, it takes processes, it takes a team. So in any CIO that's not considering bringing in a partner to help them do that is probably going down the wrong road.
And the last question for Mike on that. What percent of the sales from Five9s comes from the channel as opposed to direct?
We're at about 80%, right? 80% of our business goes through the channel.
80%. I mean, that's amazing. Really is. It's funny. We're all part of this community, so it's not just our strategists, it's our vendors, it's our suppliers, it's our employees, right? And all ships rise with the tide. I mean, that's the commitment, that hopefully you've seen here today and this whole week, right? That our company, Bridgepoint, is committed. We're committed to being professional, working hard with our suppliers, getting you good at bats. We're committed to our strategists that when we get you at bats, we bring the right resources to the table to make you be successful. I mean, that's the goal. Every time you go out there and you get a meeting, we know how precious that meeting is when you get it, right? We know it takes a lot of time to get that call, that meeting, so we want to arm you with the right resources, the right vendors, the right suppliers. They want to bring the tools to the table so that we win. We win every time, right? So you're hearing $45 million deals, $2 million deals. I think we did 15 spotlights. I mean, we've got, Joe Vincent and the Vinco team, I mean, just slaughtering it out there from a revenue perspective. And it's month over month over month. We're growing out the East Coast. I mean, we were talking around the fire pit last night, and we haven't even scratched the surface on the opportunity in our business. We are really just starting to get there, and that goes. So we all are, our suppliers, our strategists, really, we are literally just starting to kick this thing off, and I think we all see it. More importantly, we feel it. We want to thank today, our vendors, our suppliers, and appreciate your time, your experience, your expertise. Anybody have any questions? Yep.
Are we good here?
Yep.
So For the first time, as somebody on the CIO track, the CIO acronym used to stand for career is over, right? For the first time now with the pandemic, there is a path beyond the IT leader. It's a business leadership. There are a lot of us that work with people who are on the CIO track. And what I'm hearing is we have to start helping them articulate in a way where they didn't buy CoreSite, they bought better application performance. They didn't buy 5 nines, they bought better customer relationship, right? They didn't buy Netrio end user experience. How do we help people, because we're in a contact-based business, we're not an account-based business. The contact helps us buy and then takes us from company to company, job to job to job. As people progress, how do we help these CIO track people do the same things that you're talking about doing with, how do we help them elevate and think beyond the CIO, more on the business level, COO, even CEO track? That was never possible before. So can you help us with the conversations we should be having with people who are not yet CIO, so we can help them elevate, and as they grow in their business, they buy more and more and more through all of us to someone, and tell their business, I didn't buy Cisco, I bought X, right? So, which is sort of a detriment to us, because we're not selling logos, we're selling solutions, and we're not beating our own drumbeat. That make sense?
Who wants to grab that?
I can try to start. That's a great question. It's a lot. I don't know how much time we have left here, but
What's that? You got to unpack it.
we're already in
Kinka?
the red. I
Unpack
see that
it.
flashing down there. But I think, you know, it was said earlier, the outcome-based conversation is a big one. I'm still shocked that, you know, at the engineering sort of management level, director level, that they still don't understand what the core drivers are in the business. And I think that's, you got to have the acumen to understand, like, you know, if you're a public company, if you're not looking at your earnings transcripts, if you're not looking at your earnings reports, if you're not understanding what those core business drivers of your company actually are, then you're missing an opportunity to talk to the business. And I think that's a big piece. I think somebody mentioned ROI tools and TCO tools. Those are big pieces as well, but it's very much shifting from infrastructure and app speak to, you know, thinking about really what's the business, what are the application drivers and the services around that, in my opinion.
Yeah, let me just add too, I think a lot of it is, when you look at those roles, a lot of that is very tactical, right? So it's very tactical driven of the business piece that they own. And it's the ability to move them from a traditional thinking of how do they fix a widget to what the impact of the widget is on the business, right? So it's becoming less tactical and more strategic, and anything that you can do to help along that path, and that's where we can help you have those conversations with them.
Yeah, all very good insights from my peers up here. So I thought you said something that was very valuable, is by making them successful, your initial contact with that company, whoever that resource is, by you making them successful in their own career, right, that just translates to more success for you in your pursuits with that individual, right? They're going to get better at what they're doing in their existing role. They're going to get elevated within the organization. They may have greater influence over that account, or they're going to move to a different account, right? And they'll never forget you for helping them along that journey, right? So the better you can enable them through this transformation, make them successful, certainly going to pay dividends for you. And just one thing that we never mentioned today is it's okay to challenge their status quo, their thinking. It's not easy to change, right? They are going to want to continue to do things the way that they've always done them. And after you've built that relationship, which you guys are the maestros at, right? You get a little bit more flexibility with them. You get more leash that you can lean in and challenge them to disrupt the status quo within the organization. And get them to be entrepreneurial, right? That is a word that never flows into IT. Nobody ever thinks IT is entrepreneurial, right? But that is exactly what you were trying to foster within an organization, is that entrepreneurial tech leader.
And I appreciate it. I put back the first slide because it's an opportunity of a lifetime for the CIO, but it's an opportunity of a lifetime for us right now. Our buyers that we deal with every day have more power than they've ever had in the past. And not only if you make them successful at that job, what we see and everybody in this strategist knows, they bring you into the next job and they take you to the next place, right? So the more value you drive, the better you do for them, right? The more we all win collectively. So round of applause for the panels. Thank you, guys.